Welcome to Galactic Audiobooks, where humanity's greatest tales of resilience are told. My name is Max, and I'll be your guide through the story that unfolds today. Before we dive into this incredible journey, take a moment to subscribe. It's completely free, and it ensures you don't miss out on more thrilling stories like the one we're about to share. Let's get started. Part 1. Kaldrex invasion begins. The Kaldrex Empire had a history of flawless conquests, stretching across the stars, a vast and powerful army that had already subdued hundreds of planets. They were a warlike species, bred for battle and equipped with technology that outclassed anything the universe had seen before. With their massive, imposing exoskeletons, each Kaldrex warrior stood a daunting 9 feet tall. Their armor was virtually impenetrable, capable of withstanding blasts from weapons that could melt entire cities. Their plasma rifles could vaporize the toughest metal, and their shields could deflect the mightiest artillery. When the Kaldrex arrived, resistance was a thing of the past. They had come, they had conquered, and they had left nothing but submission in their wake. Earth, however, was different. For months, Commander Zarnok had been studying this planet, watching the human species through his ship's advanced surveillance systems. He had seen their cities, their armies, and their technology. But he dismissed them as primitive, weak creatures. They used tools, sure, but their weapons were laughable compared to Kaldrex standards. "I've seen their military," Zarnok had said to his second-in-command. "They have nothing that can stop us. These humans will fall like every other species before them." His voice was a harsh clicking sound, the mandibles on his face vibrating with anticipation. "We will land in their most remote regions, establish control, and wipe out their military presence before they even realize what's happening." The Kaldrex fleet, a vast armada of battle-hardened warships, cut through the stars. They descended into the Earth's atmosphere, their sleek black pods lined up like a row of sharks circling their prey. The air around them crackled with the intense heat of re-entry as their heat shields glowed bright red. The Kaldrex were ready for battle. Commander Zarnok ordered the landing pods to be deployed over a remote region of the southwestern United States. A barren stretch of land where there was little military presence, an easy target. "Prepare for landing. This will be the beginning of the end for these pathetic humans." As the pods began their descent, Zarnok felt an eerie calm settle over him. There would be no resistance, he thought. This would be as simple as all the others. Nothing could prepare him for what awaited. Part 2. Unexpected landing. The Kaldrex invasion force plummeted toward the Earth, streaking through the sky in fiery arcs. The landing pods were designed for one thing: to destroy and conquer. They crashed into the Earth with a thunderous roar, tearing through the air, ripping up the ground, and leaving craters as they struck. The Kaldrex warriors emerged from the smoke and dust, their massive forms towering over the wreckage of their pods. Their plasma rifles hissed with a soft charge as they stepped out, ready for battle. But what greeted them wasn't the scene of panic and fear they had come to expect. It wasn't an army of humans ready to defend their planet. No, the Kaldrex had landed right in the middle of a chaotic, yet surprisingly peaceful, human gathering, the Great Chili Cook-Off. It was the largest cooking competition in the area, where hundreds of people from across the state had gathered to compete for the coveted title of Chili Champion. Huge vats of simmering chili bubbled over the fire pits, sending spicy aromas thick with the scent of peppers, garlic, and onions into the air. The skies were hazy with the smoke rising from dozens of grills and smokers, adding to the thick, flavorful fog that enveloped the event. The Kaldrex warriors, their enhanced vision scanning the surroundings, were momentarily confused. The smell hit them first, a sharp, pungent mix of chili and smoky wood wafting through the air. It burned their alien nostrils, a sensation they were unprepared for. They had faced fire before, but nothing like this. The atmosphere was thick, dense with a kind of smoke they had never encountered. Their breathing apparatus, designed to filter out harmful gases, began to malfunction under the intensity of the smoke. The thick, savory fog clogged their filters, creating a panicked hissing sound as the Kaldrex soldiers adjusted their masks. One by one, they stumbled and coughed, their once steady steps turning into a disoriented shuffle. "Report." Commander Zarnok barked, his mandibles clicking in irritation. The warrior closest to him made a strangled sound, unable to speak as the pungent smoke irritated his throat. "This atmosphere," he gasped, "it is intoxicating. It is too thick. I cannot breathe." Zarnok's eyes narrowed in frustration. He had expected a simple, routine conquest, but this was unlike anything he had encountered before. "We've underestimated them," he muttered to himself, trying to regain his composure. "We are not facing an army. We are facing cooking fumes." His voice was sharp with disbelief. Around him, the humans seemed completely unaffected by the chaos. The cooks, many of whom were old-timers with weathered faces and rough hands, continued their work. They tended their massive pots of chili, stirring them with practiced ease, as if nothing had changed. The sound of sizzling meat and the occasional popping of grease was drowned out by the hum of the crowd chatting and laughing. One particularly large man, Big Hank, noticed the sudden drop in temperature and looked up from his work. He squinted through the haze of smoke, watching as the towering figures in exoskeletal armor approached. "Well, look at that," he muttered to himself. "Guess we got some extra competition this year." The aliens, still struggling to adjust to the smoke, continued to move awkwardly through the crowd. Their advanced armor clattered against the steel cooking equipment, and the hum of their plasma rifles seemed out of place among the cheerful buzz of the cook-off. The humans barely paid them any attention, most of them still immersed in their cooking, while others chatted casually. One older woman, Grandma Mabel, whose cornbread had won multiple blue ribbons, looked up and chuckled. "Well, that's one way to make an entrance," she said, shaking her head. For the Kaldrex, this was no battlefield. It was a strange, foreign place filled with cooking smells, strange customs, and an overwhelming sense of calm. There was no fear, no panic, no chaos. Just the quiet determination of humans focused on perfecting their chili. But what Zarnok and his warriors didn't know was that they had made a grave mistake. Underestimating the human spirit, underestimating their resilience and creativity, was a fatal flaw. The Kaldrex were about to learn that the human ability to adapt and fight no matter the odds was something even their advanced technology couldn't defeat. And it all started with a pot of chili. Part 3. First Encounter with Humans. As the Kaldrex warriors emerged from their landing pods, the harsh, mechanical clank of their armored feet echoed across the competition grounds. Their eyes scanned the surroundings, their sensitive antennae twitching with alertness. But instead of chaos, instead of panic, What they saw was a scene of utter serenity. The humans, completely unfazed, continued their work with calm determination. They were stirring pots, flipping skewers, and laughing as if nothing was amiss. Zarnok's compound eyes darted from one human to another. They were so ordinary. They looked like nothing more than a crowd of people gathered to share a meal. No weapons. No armor. No signs of fear. Just humans, in their natural element. One elderly man, Grandpa Joe, stood near a sizzling grill, his face crinkled in a weathered smile. He casually wiped his hands on a grease-stained apron, then took a swig from his flask, his eyes narrowing at the approaching invaders. The alien warriors, towering over him, pointed their plasma rifles at the crowd, expecting some form of resistance. But Joe just squinted at them over the rim of his flask, seemingly uninterested. "Well, looks like y'all brought some big guns," Grandpa Joe muttered, taking another sip from his flask, "but you're late for the real show." His tone was casual, as if he were commenting on the weather, not facing an imminent alien invasion. Carla, a woman with a red bandana wrapped around her head, was busy stirring her massive pot of chili over an open flame. The pungent aroma of slow-cooked meat and simmering spices filled the air, blending with a thick haze of smoke. She didn't look up, nor did she flinch when the Kaldrex warriors appeared right next to her. Her hands worked with rhythmic precision, adding a dash of seasoning, checking the simmering consistency, completely unbothered by the creatures in front of her. Zarnok's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Do they not understand what's happening?" he muttered. His warriors were now visibly uneasy, some of them shifting their weight as they waited for the humans to react, but nothing. They stood frozen in their tracks, like statues in a bizarre scene, their focus unwavering. The humans kept on cooking, chatting, and laughing as if nothing had changed. "These primitives are foolish," Zarnok growled, his voice low with disdain. "They don't even see us as a threat." The Kaldrex warriors, used to fear being etched into the eyes of the species they conquered, were not prepared for this. These humans, small, unarmored, seemingly weak, did not even seem to notice their arrival. And yet, something about the indifference was even more unsettling. These people were not cowering. They were not running. They were not afraid. Part 4. The Ruined Chili. The moment stretched on an eerie silence, broken only by the clinking of cooking utensils and the occasional whistle of the wind. Then, in an instant, the calm was shattered. Zarnok, growing frustrated, stepped forward. His heavy exoskeleton armor clanged as he approached one of the large grills, a massive smoker used by Hank, one of the town's most skilled chefs. Hank had been preparing his famous chili for hours, his meticulous work taking all day to perfect. The rich scent of simmering spices filled the air, a small piece of culinary heaven he had created, and as always, he approached his craft with reverence. Zarnok's impatience got the better of him. With a sudden, aggressive swipe, he knocked the massive pot of chili off its precarious position on the edge of a grill. The pot tipped, spilling the thick, spicy concoction into the dirt. The sizzling sound of the chili hitting the ground was almost deafening, the rich smell of meat and spice instantly replaced by the dusty air of the competition grounds. The crowd went silent. The moment hung in the air, thick with disbelief. For the first time since the Kaldrex's arrival, The humans stopped what they were doing and turned their attention to the fallen pot. Hank stood still for a moment, his eyes focused on the ruined chili. His expression remained calm, unfazed by the colossal mistake the alien had just made. His hand slowly lowered from his grill, and he turned his gaze towards Zarnoke. "Boy, you've made a big mistake," Hank muttered under his breath, his voice steady, but carrying a tone of quiet menace. He wasn't shouting, he wasn't angry, but there was a weight in his words, something that made the Kaldrex warrior feel a chill run through his exoskeleton. The humans around Hank began to gather, their eyes on the ruined chili, then on Zarnoke, as if the spilled food was the only thing that mattered. Hank, though, didn't let the moment pass in anger. Instead, he took a deep breath, exhaled, and slowly rolled up his sleeves. "You see, this here," Hank said, pointing to the fallen chili, "isn't just food. This is everything. This is patience, this is care, and this," he paused, locking eyes with Zarnoke, "is where you made your mistake." Hank's hand moved slowly to the side, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, and in one fluid motion, he grabbed the edge of a nearby smoker, his massive hands effortlessly lifting it back into place. His fingers, calloused from years of working with fire, gently adjusted the lid, as if nothing in the world could ruin what had been carefully created. "Now," Hank said, his voice steady but filled with an undeniable authority, "you're gonna find out just how far you can push a Texan." Zarnoke, still unsure of how to react, felt something he had never felt before: doubt. He had faced beings capable of tearing apart metal with their bare hands. He had seen entire planets bend under the weight of his army. But this was different. He had just made a fatal mistake, not by attacking a planet, but by underestimating the power of a single human's resolve. And what he didn't know was that Hank wasn't alone. The entire town stood behind him. These weren't just humans, these were Texans, and Texans didn't back down. Not even in the face of an alien invasion. And that was a mistake the Kaldrex would soon regret. Part 5, Hank's Revenge. The moment Zarnoke knocked over Hank's chili, the entire atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just about the ruined food anymore. It was about something deeper, something that ran through the very fabric of humanity. Hank stood there for a heartbeat, his face set in stone, his eyes narrowing with a quiet intensity. His massive hands, calloused and worn from years of working with fire and food, didn't tremble. He wasn't angry, he was calm, in control. Slowly, Hank turned his back to Zarnoke and walked toward his grill. The alien commander stared, confused. What is he doing? Zarnoke thought. Why isn't he reacting? Hank's boots thudded on the dirt with a rhythmic, deliberate pace. As the crowd of humans watched in silence, Hank reached the grill, his movements slow and methodical. He paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts, then bent down and, with surprising ease for a man his size, began rummaging around his setup. Zarnoke and his warriors watched intently, their weapons raised and ready, but they couldn't understand the strange calm radiating from the human. Then, Hank pulled out what no one expected, a homemade flamethrower. It wasn't a military-grade weapon, not like the plasma rifles that crackled in the hands of the Kaldrex warriors. This was something else. It was rough around the edges, crafted from metal pipes and a modified propane tank, with a nozzle that had clearly been pieced together with ingenuity rather than precision. The weapon wasn't sleek or advanced, it was human. The crowd gasped. Some took a step back, not from fear, but from the realization that this was not a man who was about to back down. Hank's fingers gripped the makeshift flamethrower with ease, his stance wide and firm, the embodiment of calm under pressure. Zarnok stared at the flamethrower in disbelief. This human is going to fight us with fire? Hank turned slowly to face the Kaldrex warriors, the flamethrower now aimed directly at Zarnok. His voice was a low growl, yet every word carried an unmistakable weight. You think you can just come here, destroy my food, and walk away? Hank said, the words slow and deliberate. You've got another thing coming, bug boy. Zarnok's warriors took a step back. They had never encountered a species so unpredictable, so willing to fight for something so simple as a meal. The Kaldrex had seen entire civilizations crumble under their power, but no one had ever faced them with such defiance, not from a primitive species like humans. Hank didn't wait for a response. He squeezed the trigger. A burst of flame shot from the nozzle, engulfing the air in front of him. The heat was so intense that it scorched the air itself, sending a wave of heat toward the Kaldrex soldiers. They recoiled instinctively, their advanced armor designed to withstand plasma, not the raw, unrefined force of fire. Zarnok took a step back, his mandibles clicking in confusion. What is this? He had faced species that could manipulate fire, but never in this form. This wasn't technology. This was humanity. The Kaldrex had never considered that a species so primitive, so unrefined, could have such an effective weapon. Hank smiled, his eyes steely and focused. Let me show you just how powerful fire can be, he said, his voice a mix of quiet fury and controlled pride. Part 6, The Human Resistance. The moment Hank unleashed his flamethrower, the atmosphere of the cook-off changed entirely. What had been a peaceful, albeit chaotic, gathering of food lovers transformed into a battlefield. The Kaldrex had underestimated the resolve of humanity, and now they were learning the hard way that no one, no matter how powerful, could crush the human spirit. The humans, seeing Hank take a stand, were quick to react. The air was thick with smoke, the scent of grilled meat mixing with a sharp tang of sweat and fear. But it wasn't fear that fueled their next move, it was defiance. The cooks, most of whom had no military training, now turned their cooking tools into weapons. The barbecue masters, accustomed to dealing with fire, picked up propane tanks and began rolling them toward the invaders. A few even turned their grills into makeshift flamethrowers, using the hot coals and burning wood to spray blasts of fire in all directions. The Kaldrex warriors, who had expected to face an unarmed, frightened populace, found themselves fighting for their lives against something far more terrifying: human creativity and resourcefulness. A man named Cletus, who had been at the grill next to Hank, grabbed a turkey fryer and lifted it onto a nearby table. With a quick flick of a switch, the fryer ignited, releasing a burst of superheated oil. Cletus aimed it at a nearby Kaldrex soldier, who attempted to raise his plasma rifle. The oil hit the warrior's armor, sizzling and spitting, the flames catching the edges of his suit. The alien screamed in pain as his armor was consumed by fire, retreating back into the haze. Meanwhile, Grandma Mabel, the town's reigning cornbread champion, was standing at the top of an RV, armed with a skillet. With surprising speed, she launched it at a Kaldrex soldier, striking him square in the chest. The soldier staggered back, disoriented, as Mabel yelled, "Get your dirty hands off my chili!" The chaos spread like wildfire. Humans everywhere were picking up anything they could find to fight back: pressure cookers, frying pans, even sharpened wooden spoons. Every weapon became a tool of resistance. It was clear, the Kaldrex warriors were not prepared for this. The invaders had underestimated the power of human ingenuity. Where the Kaldrex saw only primitive technology, the humans saw opportunity. They fought not with sophisticated weapons, but with the unrelenting determination of a species that had survived against all odds. Every grill, every smoker, every propane tank was transformed into an instrument of resistance. And with each new fire started, with each new tool repurposed for battle, the Kaldrex were learning the truth about humanity. The battle was no longer about the destruction of a planet. It was about survival. And humans? They would fight to survive. Part 7. The Kaldrex warriors panic. Zarnok's confidence faltered as he observed his soldiers. The Kaldrex warriors, who had so easily crushed countless civilizations before, were now stumbling around, disoriented and gasping for breath. The dense smoke from the chili pots and barbecue grills was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was thick, pungent, and overpowering. Clouds of hickory and mesquite smoke hung heavy in the air, laced with the sharp sting of chili peppers and spices. Their advanced breathing apparatus, designed to filter out toxic gases and pollutants, could not handle the overwhelming mixture of aromas and heat. The system's filters were quickly clogged by the sticky compounds in the smoke. Some warriors tried to adjust their gear, but it was futile. The air felt suffocating, each breath a struggle as the spicy fumes stung their throats. Their alien physiology, so finely tuned for other environments, could not process this earthly atmosphere. Zarnok's frustration grew as he watched his warriors stumble. Some of them staggered, their vision blurred from the combination of smoke and heat. One Kaldrex warrior reached up, his helmet clicking as he fumbled with the oxygen filters, but it was too late. He collapsed to his knees, unable to regain his composure. Another warrior, his face contorted in confusion and panic, tried to draw his plasma rifle, but his hands were shaking. Zarnok's mandibles clicked in panic. "What is happening?" he barked to his second-in-command. "Why are they not fighting back?" His second-in-command was equally baffled, his voice strained as he reported, "The smoke, Commander. It is too much. The filters are overwhelmed. They cannot breathe." Zarnok was enraged, but deep down, he too was beginning to feel the effects of the suffocating smoke. The thick air burned in his own lungs, and he realized that something fundamental had gone terribly wrong. They had entered a battlefield where they were not the masters. The humans, on the other hand, were unfazed. In fact, they seemed to thrive in the smoky atmosphere. They knew how to handle fire, how to control it, how to use it to their advantage. The Kaldrex warriors, despite their advanced technology and powerful weapons, were now facing an enemy who had mastered something as simple as smoke and fire. The tables were turning. Zarnok raised his plasma rifle, determined to take control of the situation, but just as he aimed, he saw something that made him hesitate. A group of humans, their faces grim and determined, were dragging fire hoses from a nearby truck. He heard the roar of an engine, and a massive fire truck, its sirens blaring, barreled through the smoke, its water cannons aimed directly at the advancing Kaldrex. The fire hoses unleashed a torrent of water, washing over the Kaldrex soldiers, knocking several off their feet. The warriors scrambled to rise, but the water only made them slip and falter, their heavy armor becoming a burden instead of a shield. It was no longer a battle of technology versus technology. The humans had turned the environment itself into a weapon. Part 8. The Tide Turns. As Zarnok and his warriors struggled to regain their composure, the humans turned the tide of the battle in ways that made the Kaldrex forces look like amateurs. The event, which had started as a cook-off, now felt more like an industrial battle where everything grills, propane tanks, fire trucks became a weapon. Fire trucks, once just tools for putting out fires, were now being used to send powerful streams of water straight into the alien ranks. The Kaldrex warriors, whose armor had been designed to withstand plasma blasts, now found themselves slipping and sliding in the mud as water poured over them, their advanced weapons rendered useless in the flood. The warriors who had once been so confident now seemed utterly out of place. They couldn't understand how the humans had turned something as ordinary as water into a weapon so effective. One particularly large truck, rigged with a makeshift cannon, rolled through the smoke, aimed directly at a group of Kaldrex soldiers trying to regroup. The truck's driver, Bubba, let out a war cry as he fired the cannon. The blast, made from a compressed air tank filled with burning liquid, created a fiery spray that caught two Kaldrex warriors mid-stride. Their armor sizzled as the fire engulfed them, their shrieks filling the air. The Kaldrex soldiers, caught off guard, began to retreat, scrambling away from the humans' firepower. Across the battlefield, the humans had transformed the very tools of their trade into instruments of war. Propane tanks, once used to fuel the barbecue grills, were now being hurled toward the alien forces. Grandma Mabel, who had been stirring her famous cornbread just moments before, was now throwing mason jars filled with high-proof moonshine at the invaders, lighting them on fire with a flick of her lighter. The jars shattered on impact, sending flames in every direction. The Kaldrex, unable to comprehend the chaos, tried to dodge the flying incendiary bombs, but they were too slow. Their advanced sensors couldn't detect the homemade explosives in time. In the midst of the mayhem, Hank emerged, his flamethrower still roaring as he made his way through the smoke. His path was clear now. He wasn't just fighting for food, for pride, or for the victory of his chili. He was fighting for his home, for his people, and for every person who had ever worked under the sweltering Texas sun to create something from nothing. His weapon wasn't just fire, it was a symbol of human ingenuity, of resilience, and of the refusal to be defeated. Zarnok, seeing his forces retreating, turned to his second-in-command, his voice laced with frustration. "We need to regroup. These primitives, they are fighting with everything they have. But we will not lose." But deep down, Zarnok knew. The humans had shown them something they hadn't expected. Fire. The very thing that had once been an uncontrollable force of nature, something to be feared, had become their greatest weapon. The Kaldrex might have superior technology, but it was the human spirit fueled by creativity, determination, and an unwavering desire to protect their home that was proving to be the true force to be reckoned with. And that was a lesson the Kaldrex would never forget. Part 9. The Kaldrex Retreat. The Kaldrex fleet, once a formidable force that had crushed entire civilizations, now found itself on the defensive. Zarnok stood atop the command ship, staring at the chaotic scene below. His warriors were retreating, stumbling back through the thick smoke, their advanced technology failing to give them the advantage they so confidently expected. The Kaldrex had always prided themselves on their superior firepower, their unyielding strength, and their ability to crush anything in their path. But these humans, these primitive beings, were something entirely different. They weren't just fighting with the weapons they had, they were fighting with their ingenuity, their adaptability, and their unrelenting will to survive. Zarnok watched, helpless, as more of his soldiers retreated, unable to withstand the onslaught. Fire trucks had been repurposed into mobile weapons platforms, firing streams of water and fire at his troops. The once terrifying Kaldrex warriors, towering and powerful, now seemed like a shadow of their former selves, slipping in the mud, choking on the smoke, and struggling to use their advanced weapons in a world that was nothing like the planets they had conquered. "Commander, the situation is deteriorating," one of his officers reported, his voice trembling with fear. "We cannot hold the line any longer. The humans, they are using their environment against us. Their firepower is relentless, and their strategy is unorthodox." Zarnok's mandibles clicked in frustration. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving. They had taken what should have been a simple invasion and turned it into a chaotic, yet highly effective defense. They had adapted, quickly realizing that the tools they had, grills, propane tanks, fire trucks, could be weapons in the hands of people who knew how to use them. Zarnok had fought in countless battles across the galaxy, but this was different. He had underestimated humanity. He had underestimated their resilience, their creativity, and their capacity to turn the most basic tools into instruments of war. With a growl, Zarnok turned to his command deck. "Prepare for retreat," he ordered. "We are leaving this planet. The humans have proven themselves far more dangerous than we anticipated. We will regroup and reassess. Earth will not be conquered today." The Kaldrex ships, once poised for victory, began to lift off from the battlefield, their engines firing up with a deafening roar. As the fleet ascended into the smoky sky, the humans below watched, stunned, as the invaders retreated. But Zarnok knew one thing for certain: the Kaldrex would never forget the lesson they had learned on Earth. Humans weren't just fighters. They were survivors. And that made them more dangerous than any plasma weapon or advanced technology could ever be. Part 10. The Aftermath. As the last of the Kaldrex ships disappeared into the sky, the town of Sundown, Texas, stood still for a moment, processing what had just happened. The invaders had been driven off not by an army, not by advanced technology, but by the sheer will of ordinary people. The victory was unimaginable, and yet, it was real. The townspeople slowly began to gather in the center of the cook-off grounds, their faces painted with exhaustion, relief, and disbelief. The fire trucks had been turned into makeshift barricades, and the smell of charred alien armor mixed with the scent of grilled meats and barbecue sauce. For the first time in history, humans had fought back against an alien invasion not with military might, but with ingenuity, creativity, and a deep-seated pride in their ability to survive. But instead of taking the time to revel in their victory, The townspeople did what they knew best, they went back to cooking. The Great Chili Cook-Off, once a simple competition to see who could make the best chili, had become a symbol of their triumph. The grills were fired up again, the smokers began to billow with fragrant clouds of wood smoke, and the cooking continued. Only now, it had a deeper meaning. The food wasn't just a contest, it was a celebration of the human spirit. Bubba, who had helped turn his old pickup truck into a mobile assault vehicle, stood proudly by his grill, flipping sausages. Grandma Mabel, who had thrown more than her fair share of flaming mason jars, was back to tending her cornbread, humming as she stirred the pot. And Big Hank, the man who had led the charge with his homemade flamethrower, stood at the center, grinning ear to ear as he checked on his brisket, the flames licking the edges of the meat. "Guess we've got the best kind of barbecue after all," he muttered to no one in particular, shaking his head with a quiet laugh. A sign was placed by the front gate of the cook-off grounds. It read, in bold letters, "Fireworks and Barbecue Day, a new holiday to commemorate the day humanity fought back against the Kaldrex invasion with nothing more than fire, food, and the will to survive." Local news reporters swarmed in, their cameras capturing the surreal sight. A town of humans, armed with nothing more than cooking tools, had defeated an alien force. The headlines flashed across the screen, accompanied by a shot of Hank, still covered in soot and smiling as he flipped a brisket. "Humans defeat alien invaders with cooking tools," one headline read. "A victory like no other," read another. The world watched as the story of the Great Barbecue Battle spread across the globe. The world may have thought it was a joke, but those who had witnessed it knew the truth. The humans of Sundown, Texas, had faced down the ultimate challenge and come out victorious. They had proven that no matter the odds, no matter the adversary, the human spirit could not be defeated, not by fire, not by alien invaders, and certainly not by anything else. And as the town's celebration carried on late into the night, with laughter, food, and fireworks filling the air, one thing was certain: humanity had just made its mark on the galaxy. Part 11, Final Reflection. The heat of the day had faded into the cool evening as the entire town of Sundown, Texas, gathered for what had become the most unexpected of celebrations. What started as a cook-off had transformed into something much more significant, a symbol of humanity's resilience and unshakable spirit. Hank, the man who had taken charge, the one who had led the fight against the Kaldrex invaders with nothing but a homemade flamethrower and a deep pride in his Texas roots, was called to the front of the crowd. The applause was deafening as the townspeople cheered, their faces glowing with pride. It wasn't just a victory of the day, it was a victory of humankind, of survival, and of proving that even the most advanced alien technology couldn't match human ingenuity. A local official, someone who would have never imagined they'd be awarding a barbecue hero, stepped up to present Hank with a special trophy. It wasn't a prize for the best chili or the most tender brisket, it was an award for killing the invader ship with barbecue. The crowd erupted in laughter and cheers at the very thought of it, but no one was laughing more than Hank. As he stood there, trophy in hand, his voice boomed over the microphone, carrying a calm yet confident tone. "Barbecue ain't just about the meat," he said with a smile that could rival the brightness of the Texas Sunday. "It's about patience, respect, and knowing your fire." The crowd nodded in agreement, their eyes bright with admiration. To them, it wasn't just about food. It was about what barbecue represented: tradition, unity, and the unwavering will to stand your ground when it mattered most. Hank wasn't just a hero because he had cooked the perfect brisket. He was a hero because, like every Texan worth their salt, he had fought to protect what was theirs no matter the cost. The way he had stood up to the Kaldrex, how he had calmly defended his town, turned the tables on the invaders, and inspired others to do the same, that was what made Hank the hero. As the sun dipped lower, the community gathered around the massive grills once again. The barbecue was far from over. The celebrations continued, with the people of Sundown standing together, side by side, laughing, cooking, and sharing stories. The aliens may have left, but their retreat wasn't the end. It was a mark of victory, a testament to the fact that humans could never be defeated, not by aliens, not by anything. The Kaldrex had learned the hard way that when it came to fighting for their home, humanity would always rise to the challenge. Part 12, The Great Victory. Weeks passed after the invasion, but the echoes of that day lingered in the hearts and minds of the people of Sundown. News outlets across the country had picked up the story of how a small town had turned the tide in an intergalactic war with nothing more than creativity, resourcefulness, and a whole lot of fire. Government agencies began analyzing the event, researching how such a primitive species had fought back with such devastating effectiveness. The Kaldrex retreat had left more than just empty skies above Earth. It had left the entire world with a powerful message. Humanity wasn't a species to be taken lightly. The spirit of survival, the relentless determination, and the creativity of humans were the true weapons that had won the day. Scientists were now tasked with understanding how the Kaldrex had been caught off guard by simple human ingenuity. How had the humans, armed with nothing more than cooking tools, turned a food competition into a full-scale battle? But for Hank, the victory wasn't about the scientific reports or the global attention. It was about his town, his people, and the simple joy of cooking over a fire. One day, a small, official-looking package arrived at Hank's doorstep. It was from NASA. Inside, he found a letter of congratulations, accompanied by a patch bearing the NASA logo. The letter itself was simple, yet its contents struck a chord deep within him. "We've sent them a message, and a sample of your signature barbecue sauce in case they get homesick." The letter continued, explaining that a deep space probe had been sent with a special transmission for the Kaldrex fleet as they retreated through the stars. The message was clear, a simple yet cheeky declaration: "Come back anytime. We've got more ribs for you." Hank leaned back in his chair, letting out a deep laugh as he read the note aloud to his friends who had gathered at his table. "Well, hell," he said, wiping his eyes. "Looks like we've really made our mark on the galaxy." The world might have once seen humanity as insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe, but after that day, the Kaldrex and any other would-be invaders would think twice before underestimating humanity again. Earth wasn't just a planet of primitive creatures. It was a planet of fighters, survivors, and people who knew the value of patience, fire, and the willingness to protect their home at all costs. The victory was sweeter than any barbecue sauce Hank had ever cooked up. It was the taste of survival, the flavor of triumph, and the undeniable proof that humans, no matter what, would always rise to the occasion.